Welcome to Massive Beers. My name is Matt. We do the beer stuff here. I've always wanted to review this beer, but it's one of those beers you gotta go get it. Except I found it in a shelf in Pennsylvania. Yeah, look at that. Fayston's Barrel Aged from Lawson's Finest Liquids. I've always wanted to review this beer because I love Lawson's. I love what they do, and honestly, the very small drips and drabs of barrel aged stuff from them, there's been some misses, but more hits than not. There's maple involved, and not to be that guy, matte black. You got a little ribbon up here, making sure it wasn't opened. You got matte black bottle, gold and black. You're preaching to choir when it comes to this kind of styling. So anyway, I went to Pennsylvania. I knew this one place, so I got invited to a bottle share. I drink my beer and kind of wanted to bring some fun stuff. And I was like, this place has fun stuff every now and then. Lo and behold, this was there at a decent price point. I got it for, I think I want to say $14.99, which I think is pretty good off a shelf. And I brought it to the share. I opened a bunch of stuff and got home, and I was like, I never opened this. We get to review it now. It's a Lawson's Finest Liquids, Fayston Barrel Aged, Fayston Maple Imperial Stout aged in whiskey barrels with coffee added. I didn't add that point yet. Coffee. This is the whiskey barrel aged version. I think there's a rum barrel aged version also. It says this very limited variant of our Fayston Maple Imperial Stout was aged in Mad River Distillers whiskey barrels and finished with coffee to provide bold aromas and fresh roasted flavor that complement both the richness of our popular Imperial Stout and the caramel and vanilla notes from time spent in the barrels. Brewed by Lawson's Finest Liquids. It's 12.7% alcohol by volume. I don't get a date on here. I didn't look all that hard, but I think this is the latest iteration. I'll just do it to it. Let's see what's what. Nice little hiss there. Here we go. It's the ASMR portion of the show right here. There we go. That's in there. It's funny because this desk is not much of a head, so I can talk. This desk is an old art desk from schools. It was 2 butcher block desks that I stained and stuff. From pushing these corks down in here, I see indentations from bottles all the time. I just think it's funny. Anyway, not much of a head on there. You know, you're talking about barrel aged beer, adjunct beer, big beer. Not expecting a big head, but there's definitely carbonation going on there. Thick. It's not like 5C thick, it's like 2-3C thick, but it definitely has its carbonation going on. If you give it a little bit of a swirl, a little bit of a shake, as you can see, the head kind of comes back. Get myself a little paper towel because I can't control myself. I just throw beer all over the place. And we're off to a good start. Look at that. It's kind of nice. Pretty nice. So it definitely looks the part of a big, boisterous stout. It's good nose. Coffee is the star of the show here. Aromatically, it's very big. I mean, you're talking a big roasty Imperial Stout. I just want to punch myself right now. I realized I was looking at this beer, the base of this, in a refrigerator today, and I didn't pick it up. I'll pick it up. Would have been a great side by side. Anyway, yeah, it's a combination of big roasty toast stout with a nice big coffee component added to it. And that's the biggest portion of the show, at least on the nose, aromatically. You definitely get a nice sweetness to it. You definitely get a maltiness to it. Or a spirit base to it. Am I going to sit here and say gobs and gobs maple kind of going on? No, but I kind of dig that. I think maple can get very, very, very heavy-handed when it comes to beer. So, like, I like it when it's a little bit more subdued, specifically on the nose, because it can catch up on the taste. Now, it is the maple Imperial Stout, so it's gone through its steps of coffee and barreling after. That is a part of the base component, so that kind of makes sense that it might be a little bit behind. But it smells really nice. It smells undersweetened. If I'm going to come away with this aromatically on the nose, the biggest portion of the show here is that it smells like a really well done stout, but it's not leaning into ultra sweet confectionariness that everybody leans into nowadays, and I think I dig it. Let's dive in. Cheers, all. I've never been more right about the nose. At least the nose leading into taste. It's exactly. The nose gives you exactly what you're getting in taste. Just a little more to it. You know, that vanilla coconut, that little bit of richer, not hyper rich kind of confectionariness you tend to get from barrels there. The mouthfeel, obviously, you're not going to get any kind of perception of that on the nose. But it is a roasty, toasty stout that leans coffee that has this nice, beautiful, undersweetened barrel component to it that all just kind of marries together into something that's a bit, not even a bit, a decent part adulty. You know, I talk about these adulty desserts all the time. I hope that descriptor makes sense to people. If you've never had adulty desserts, you'd be like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. I always lean into Score Bar, because I think that's probably the most widely available kind of adulty dessert I can think of. And I haven't had a Score Bar in a while, so maybe I should go back and revisit one. I actually haven't had one since I was in my late teens, early 20s. But I always viewed it as a candy that was just not really candy. A little bit more kind of like undersweetened. And I always viewed that as adulty, and it kind of leaned into food later in life. You know, you go to a really nice fancy pants restaurant and you order, you know, a chef prepared dessert, not necessarily just give me the cheesecake, you know, that kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with cheesecake, but desserts tend to be way less sweet. Not as just sweet on sweet on sweet. There tends to be kind of a balance and an ebb and flow with kind of adulty desserts. In that you can balance bittering and sweet and all those kind of things. I don't want to think like bacon and chocolate, bacon and maple, that kind of thing, even though that kind of makes sense here. But it just has this kind of balance to it where it's just not sugar on sugar on sugar. And that's what you're getting here. Because you're getting a really well done barrel-aged, or base beer, we'll get to the barrel in a minute, base beer portion of the show here. Roasty, toasty, Russian Imperial Stouty. You know, you're definitely getting a bittering from both a roasted malt and a hop component here. You step that up with that coffee component here. It's a nice kind of like medium dark roast kind of coffee. Definitely like nothing here is like hyper. I wouldn't say not astringent, because I think all coffee has a subtle astringency to it, and I'm sure some coffee nerd's gonna flip out now. But to have a big rich Imperial Stout and then throw that coffee in there, there's a tinge of astringency here, but way less than what you expect when you start layering those things on top of each other. So a nice big roasty toasty Russian Imperial Stout base, that nice kind of rich medium dark roast coffee with little to no bitter astringency to it, and then you start layering in the barrel portion of the show, that rub kind of chocolate component that brings an even darker, richer roastiness to everything, even a skosh of bittering to everything, a nice vanilla kind of coconut component that you get from that barrel, and finishing up with a little bit of touch of maple. Very, very minimal, but enough to let you know it exists from the base beer. In congregation? That's weird. I just named like something religious. I don't know why we're in conjunction. That's what I was trying to go for there. With a spirit component there, a whiskey component. Not bourbon, not Irish whiskey, not Canadian whiskey. It's just almost like genera whiskey, and I don't mean it as a slight to the whiskey provider here, but there's not a big bourbon or you know it's whiskey, but it comes off a bit generic. And again, I think this beer has so many components on it that it's not like a slight at the distiller. But you're getting it. You're getting it 100% here. And everything here is big without being overly violently boisterous, but at the same time, everything is within reach of each other. Some things are a little bit bigger. Coffee's a little bit bigger here. Whiskey's a little smaller there. But it's not like huge peaks and epic valleys. It's very kind of a waveformy, a la oscilloscopy kind of back and forth with a nice kind of flow to the big and small portions of the beer. And a nice mouthfeel. Like, beautifully carbonated. Even though that first pour, you're like, it kind of looks undercarb. No, it's beautifully carbonated. And a really fun beer. That's all I got. It's tasty. I like it. Is it going to wow a lot of people? I don't know. In this kind of hyper double barrel kind of adjunct laden world, I think maybe palates are expecting a bit more volume, a bit more aggressiveness. But, I don't care if I sound pretentious. If you have a refined palate for like kind of just straight up barrel aged beers like that share I was going to, everybody there was awesome. I had a great time. I had a blast. But, so a lot of people were like blown away. And there was a couple beers there where people were like, yeah, it's just barrel and beer, man. That's kind of crazy. And to me, that's just like, that's the normal. In my life, it's the normal. And it's not so much that that's a bad thing. People like what they like and they understand what they grow up on. But it's like, there's a couple times there was this barrel and beer and people were like, that's kooky, like almost like a parlor trick. And I was like, I think that's what it is. That's normal to me. Anyway, and this showcases that mentality, but with those added little components to it. So it's taking that okay, we added the maple to the base, we added the coffee to this, but it's such a reserved dose. It's not getting hyper aggressive in those components. It comes off in the beer. It comes off in a very, very pretty way, and I dig it. I think it's pretty tasty. Is this one of the better barrel-aged beers that I've had? I was like, yes. Mount Rushmore status? No. But damn tasty. Value to availability, like I said, I don't know what this typically goes for. You tell me. Picked it up for $15. I think it was $15 after tax. Off the shelf. I'm fine with that. 100%. Value to... Oh, I just said that. And leave you with, if you like what we like this. If you like Russian Imperial Stouts, if you like coffee, and you like whiskey barrels that aren't too boozy or overly sweet, you will dig this. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. Lawson's Finest. Have you been to the brewery? I have. Have you had their beers? I have. Have you had a bunch of their beers? What's your favorite beer? Have you had this beer? Have you had this whiskey barrel aged one? Have you had the rum one? Which one's better? I like rum barrel better most of the time, but I'm curious what you think. All that fun stuff down there. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little barrel aged goodness right now. Hope we'll see you next time. Cheers, y'all.